Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on CoreTV News on the hour. I am Ebulomo Oguntoye. As Ile-Ife braces up for the pronouncement of the passage of the Ooni of Ife, Okwade Shijuade on Wednesday, the atmosphere around the town seems tensed and panic, particularly among non-indigenes of Ife. Meanwhile, the management of the Obafemi Awolowo University has directed its students to stay indoors throughout the duration of the final rites of the late monarch. In the same vein, the institution has also put off all continuous assessment exercises such as tests and classes earlier slated for Wednesday, also urging residents to stay away until otherwise advised. Shijuade was born on 1st January 1930 in Ile-Ife to the Ogboru ruling house, grandson of the Oni Shijuade Adelekon Olubuse I. He studied at Abeokuta Grammar School and Oduduwa College in Ile-Ife, and a Christian. He was reported dead on July 8, 2015 in a London hospital at the age of 85. Bomb blast rocks Sabongeri town in Borno State, northeast of Nigeria, as no fewer than 47 people, mostly traders, were on Tuesday killed, with several others sustained injuries when some group of terrorists suspected to be suicide bombers invaded Sabongeri community of Damboa local government area of the state. The explosion ripped through the weekly market in the village of Sabongeri, around 135 kilometers south of Borno State capital Maiduguri, during peak trading. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Ministry of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs to intensify efforts to reunite families whose members are currently scattered in different camps for internally displaced persons. President Buhari, who expressed particular concern about the well-being of children in the camps, said that appropriate mechanisms must be put in place to ensure the proper upbringing of the children so that they don't grow up to become another national problem. The president, who spoke after receiving a briefing from the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Special Duties, Jamila Shuara, also called for a follow-up on the supervision and audit of constituency projects. Officials of the Ministry of the Federal Capital Territory also briefed President Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at the presidential villa. At the end of the briefing, Vice President Osinbajo urged the MFCT to explore alternative sources to boost its revenue base and reduce its dependence on the currently lean resources of the federal government for the development and maintenance of infrastructure in Abuja. Senate President Bukola Saraki has placed the burden of rehabilitation and reconstruction of areas devastated by insurgents in the northeast on the international community. He made this known to the visiting ambassador of South Korea, No Kyu-duk, and the Indian High Commissioner to Nigeria, A.R. Ganashiam, who visited him separately in Abuja. He was quoted in a statement issued by his media aides as lamenting that many parts of the Northeast now lack functional hospitals, schools, and other social amenities, and specifically called on the two envoys and their countries to assist the federal government in its rehabilitation efforts whenever the insurgency is out. The Senate President also told its visitors that the Senate, under his leadership, is currently reviewing extant laws and also initiating new ones to make Nigeria an attractive investment destination. Earlier, the South Korean ambassador noted that the Senate President had already proven himself as governor of Kwara State. For his part, the Indian High Commissioner to Nigeria said his country desired improved business relationship with Nigeria, having sustained mutual understanding even before the two countries became independent. Members of the National Peace Committee on Tuesday held a closed-door meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in continuation of what the group described as nationwide consultation exercise. The committee, led by former head of state Abdulsalami Abubakar, seized the opportunity to urge the president to ensure that his administration follows due process in its anti-corruption war. The members, however, denied suggestions that they have been working on securing a soft landing for former President Goodluck Jonathan. Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, Bishop Matthew Kuka, spoke on behalf of the committee at the end of the meeting in the presidential villa, Abuja.
Were very successful, and we've come here just to have further conversations with the president to get a bit of updates about the relevance of the peace committee itself, and how we can help to nurture what God has given to us. It's hitting up the polity. I think even in our conversation with President Jonathan, in our conversation with the members of the parties, I don't think any Nigerian is against, is in favor of corruption or is against the president's commitment to ensuring that we turn a new page. I think what we're concerned about genuinely is process. This is a democracy. It's no longer a military regime, and that under our existing laws, everybody is innocent until he's proven guilty. So again, our commitment, as I said, is not to intimidate or to frighten anybody. The president, the former president's commitment and what he did still remains spectacular. I think that President Buhari himself and everybody else appreciates that. So our effort really is to make sure that the right thing is done.
Meanwhile, the presidency has said the trial of persons found to have stolen public funds would begin in a matter of weeks. Special advisor on media and publicity to the president, Femi Adesina, quoted his principal as saying so while granting audience to members of the National Peace Committee led by General Abdulsalami Abubakar in the presidential villa, Abuja. It said in a statement that President Muhammadu Buhari told the committee members that Nigerians would soon know who should change them when they are taken before the law courts. Additional quoted the president as telling his guests that the federal government would not only ask for the return of stolen funds stashed in foreign banks, but would also ensure the trial of those who stole the funds. He added that the Buhari administration was diligently getting facts and figures on the stolen funds before proceeding with the trial of identified culprits. Buhari was said to have recalled that as petroleum minister under the then head of state Olusegun Obasanjo in the 1970s, he could not travel abroad until a memo is approved by the Federal Executive Council. He added that everybody now does what he wants without a recourse to constituted authorities. Members of the National Peace Committee who accompanied General Abubakar on the visit included Bishop Matthew Kuka, Sultan of Sokoto Saad Abubakar, Cardinal John Onayeka, President of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Pastor Ayo Orishejafo, and Primate of the Nigerian Anglican Church of Nigeria, Archbishop Nicholas Oko. Commonwealth Secretary General Kamala Sharma on Tuesday formally invited President Muhammadu Buhari to the heads of government meeting slated for Malta in November this year. He also used the opportunity to commend Nigeria on its successful election and the consequent handover of power from an incumbent president to an opposition candidate. The Commonwealth scribe spoke with State House correspondents after the meeting with President Buhari.
The preparations that are underway for the Commonwealth Head of Governments meeting, which is going to take place in Malta in November this year, and I was able to do that. I also offered my congratulations on the very impressive way in which the elections were conducted and also the democratic change of government which took place. It was a great Commonwealth moment. In the inaugural address, it is very clear the roadmap that has been created by the Honorable President moving forward has very clear elements in it for partnership, for those agencies outside who feel that the values which are expressed in that statement are those that are compatible in partnership with them.
The Senate wants the central bank and other commercial banks to carry out awareness campaigns on the importance of the biometric verification number in rural areas. Senators took this position after deliberations on a motion by Deputy Minority Whip Senator Biodun Olujime on the dangers posed to rural dwellers by the exercise. They expressed concern that people at the grassroots have not been carried along in a campaign they say had been focused on the elites and people living in urban centers.
Is taken to the doorsteps of our rural areas accordingly results to urge the Central Bank of Nigeria to carry out a vigorous campaign / awareness exercise in rural areas, and to direct the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and other financial matters, when constituted, to invite the CBN to explain the journey so far in the exercise and report back to the Senate. Mr. President, as in the body of the motion, it is clear that the bank verification number solution is laudable. However, when a laudable activity impacts negatively on the interests of the rural dwellers and our constituents, there is need for palliatives.
And now we're going back to do another one called BVN. And so every citizen in this country is carrying all manners of identification not linked in any way, and also, of course, we are spending so much money.
My thinking, my final take is this. I know that is a motion that has gone through approval, that the CBN governor may be coming here. Now, if he comes, these are questions that we need to pass on to him to answer. Because as lawmakers who are here, many of us are not financial gurus. We may not be able to know, understand the real reason why the BVN is being requested.
To carry out a vigorous campaign and awareness of the exercise in rural areas and ensure that the existing deadline is met. Those in favor of this amendment say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The Senate has urged the National Electricity Regulatory Commission to abolish fixed charges collected by electricity companies if concerns over the economic situation in the country goes on. It also plans to call a public hearing on allegations of unfair practices leveled against electricity distribution companies. This was on the basis of a motion by Senator Sam Egu Ebonyi-Nath, which received unanimous support from the Senate.
The Senate aware also that the distribution companies, since the takeoff of the operation, has been ripping off consumers through fixed charges and bulk metering across the country. The Senate notes further that the same areas in the country are still billed through the estimated billing system, which doesn't make provision for payment of only electricity that is consumed, even though bills are dished out without commensurate services being offered by the distribution companies.
Labour Congress keep asking for increase in wages. If people earn 5,000 naira a month, 18,000 naira a month, on one hand, 18,000 naira a month minimum wage. On the other hand, the federal government gives these people powers to raise electricity bill by 100%. How are the people expected to pay for it?
I would have liked this Senate to match this motion and tomorrow's motion and eventually take a very serious step to investigate the entire privatization process of the electricity sector so as to give workable advice or solution to the problem.
But I believe that a lot of malpractices have come out in this discussion, and I think that we must be able to get to the bottom of what has happened. Why is it despite the privatization, people have bought these schools, people have bought, implement some of this, still people have not benefited. And as one of our colleagues said, in passing this motion too, we must begin to also show that our motion that we can effect and see that there is a change.
It's the CoreTV News on the hour. Take a short break and return with more reports.
Is it crazy or autocracy? Or what type of crazy is that? Except crazy.
News making the headlines.
Black Maria is to carry criminals, trading looters that are in government today.
Sometimes it gets confrontational.
Slap you in the face. They don't put words into my mouth.
Whatever it is that will bring our military to disrepute, I said to hell.
On Core Digest.
I want to know why I should be believing them.
Every weekday, we'll bring all of these together and take them to the court of public opinion.
Everybody has a right in Nigeria.
Where you are the judge.
Many thanks for being there with us, and for more on CoreTV News, you can visit our social media platforms on Facebook, facebook.com/CoreTV News, our Twitter handle @CoreTV News NG, and on YouTube, youtube.com/CoreTV, leave a space, then News. The House of Representatives on Tuesday directed the Police Service Commission to look into the possibility of recruiting more police personnel, as well as review the welfare of its men and officers. The resolution came after a motion raised by Uzoma Ikem Abonta, representing Ukwa East West constituency, on the need to retrain and re-equip the police to maintain law and order in the country. In their contributions, other lawmakers also called for reorganization and acquisition of modern equipment for better service delivery.
Motion is simply explaining that we have acute shortage of manpower in Nigerian police, as much as also improving their capacity building and welfare. Mr. Speaker, it is a thing to note that while our policemen serve in foreign missions as peacekeeping officers, they are rated the best. Ironically, when they come back home here, we believe they are not doing well. Something must be wrong. I attribute that to the welfare they get while they are doing peacekeeping mission differs from what they get when they come home. Mr. Speaker, nobody will want to bring out the best except he's adequately motivated.
Everything that has to do with our lives, security of our lives and property, we turn to the police, and these are the same people that we have the least regard for when it comes to them benefiting for all the services they render. The welfare of the police should be paramount to us as a country. My dear colleagues, the Nigeria police really need our help.
Nigerian police are better than any police I know in the world because they detect without surveillance equipment. They even tried their best. But what we need is, if with that experience, you add them with the surveillance experience, such as CCTV cameras, bomb detectors, and metal detectors cameras and bomb detectors cameras, then street highway detective cameras.
The recent wind of developments that blew on the Niger Delta region following the directive of the President Muhammadu Buhari for a committee to be set up in a bid to create solution to the challenge of oil spillage in the land has earned the President a number of accolades. Among them is the National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Lai Mohammed, who commended the President for his act of concern towards the needs of Nigerians. The APC spokesman added that the President's intervention is poised to bring respite to dwellers in the community who had long been deprived of suitable condition of living after pollution of their farmlands and source of water due to oil spillage.
The recommendations directed at the FG from this report were that 1 is to establish the Ogoniland Environmental Restoration Authority, 2, establish the Ogoniland Environmental Restoration Fund with an initial capital of US $1 billion to be contributed by the oil industry and the federal government. 3, to set up Center of Excellence for Environmental Restoration. 4, to build capacity of government agencies so they can fulfill their mandates, especially that of the Nigerian Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, and also to organize regularly public awareness campaign on population. What President Buhari has done today are the following. The President has approved actions to fast-track the implementation of the UNEP report as far as the recommendations concern the FG.
As part of the ongoing reorganization of its public service for greater effectiveness, the Kaduna State government has named a new Accountant General. Here's Umar Hassan Waziri. The new appointment was contained in a statement from Samuel Aruwan, the Special Assistant on Media and Publicity. The government statement describes the new Accountant General as a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Accountants who previously worked with Shell Petroleum Development Company as an internal auditor. It also announced the retirement of Adamu Makadi, Permanent Secretary, Local Government, Ibrahim Balarabe Musa, Permanent Secretary, Youth, Sports and Culture, and Ishaku K. Shekari, Accountant General. They were directed to hand over to the most senior director in their ministries. The Taraba State government has marshaled out plans to reposition the civil service and block all loopholes that often lead to low internally generated revenue. Senior Special Assistant to the Governor on Media and Publicity, Sylvanus Giwa, told CoreTV News in Jalingo that civil service reforms are paramount. He also disclosed that Governor Darius Ashako is keen on ensuring that all government agencies charged with responsibility of generating revenue are effective. Governor Simon Lalong has given 2 weeks ultimatum to all those indicted by the Transition Committee set up to study all aspects of the structure, organization and operational modalities of the preceding government to come forward and explain their roles or be ready to face the EFCC and other anti-graft agencies. Governor Lalong was speaking on Tuesday in Jos while receiving the committee's report headed by the Deputy Governor, Sonny Tuoden. The persistent denial of the death of the Ooni of Ife, Obo Kwade Shijuade, has pinned confusion in the ancient city of Osun. This is coming as Oro, a Yoruba word for traditional ritual, an important rite of passage, which was announced earlier to take place on Wednesday, was debunked by the high chiefs, thus brewing confusion in the town. Our correspondent Rashid, who visited the community, has the rest of the story.
In the past few weeks, the news of Oni's death has been generating speculations. The recent is the announcement of Oro ritual, a part of the traditional rite that consequently announces the death of a sitting Oni through the closure of markets and restriction of movements. While the said traditional ritual have earlier been announced to take place on Wednesday, August 12, 2015, the traditional chiefs have debunked this. Meanwhile, in a quick response to earlier announcement of market closure, residents of Ife have stormed the markets in their metropolis in an apparent last-minute buying of foodstuffs.
They told us no market tomorrow. That's why we are just saying we are finished everything today. Everything today, that's why.
That don't come to school tomorrow. That want to
While confusion sets in about the oral rituals and subsequent announcement of the death of Oni, Ife residents, especially students, say they are in the know of the ritual and set to observe it with strict adherence, though non-residents are of mixed feelings.
A lot of people are actually well informed about it, even students on campus. They already have the inclination about it. Social media has been helpful in this part. A lot of people has it on DPs, on PMs and the like, so we are prepared for it.
My wife is in hospital now, and if I haven't been is that day that we took her to the hospital, if it was that day, I mean it could have been disaster for us.
As speculations of the death of Oni and the traditional rite continues, residents of the area appear ready for any development. Rashid, CoreTV News, Ile-Ife.
And now outside Nigeria, China's central bank has again cut the guiding rate for the national currency, the yuan, a day after Tuesday's record 1.9% devaluation. The move sent fresh shockwaves through Asian markets, but the bank has sought to calm fears, saying it was not the start of a sustained depreciation. The yuan fell another 1% on Wednesday, marking the biggest two-day lowering of its rates against the dollar in more than 2 decades. The new rate is meant to boost exports. Figures released at the weekend showed Chinese exports fell more than 8% in July, adding to concerns the world's second-largest economy is heading for a slowdown. There were further signs of weakness on Wednesday when figures showed industrial production in July rose 6% from the previous year. The rise was smaller than expected and was also below the 6.8% increase seen in June. And that's it on the news for this hour. Many thanks for watching. I am Ibrahim Oguntoye.